Well, it's a very engaging history of Australian festivals, and if I just go quickly back over my...
It's not very serious, of course. But
well, it's also very funny as well. Yeah. There's lots of very funny things.
Good.
I mean, it's definitely entertained me as well. What I like, here's a tiny quote which I thought was great. I hope each programme afforded for a closer acquaintance with the work of some of the most penetrating interpreters of the zeitgeist. So I suppose that's a description of so many of our artists and composers, the penetrating interpreters of the zeitgeist.
Well, it's what we hope they are, and what I was always on the lookout for.
And of course, that's what a festival director's trying to curate.
Well, my advice to them is that that's what they should be doing, yes. And they are, I agree.
And in music, there's a quote halfway through it, isn't it? All kinds of music for all kinds of people.
Oh, yes. Yes, well, that was to cover our backsides, really, because that's exactly what we did. Tony Camden, whose idea it was to have a music festival,
yes,
wanted a Mozart festival. And again, I thought to myself, how boring, particularly since it was in the Mozart year, and we were bound to be hearing every note he wrote several times over. And so all kinds of music for all kinds of people I thought would be attractive to the rest of the board.
Almost an antidote to Mozart as well.
And it was.
Or balance.
Yeah.
And Tony Camden, of course, is an enormous name for oboists as well. I mean, I knew him
Indeed.
in LSO before he left. I'm sure
Yes.
you were there as well. I remember him presenting Walton his 80th birthday cake in the Barbican. William Walton.
Oh, really?
I think it was a very, very early gig in the Barbican. Be about, I'm not sure of my dates now, 83, something like that.
Mm-hmm. I worked with his father a lot.
Yes, super famous bassoonist.
Yeah, he was a wonderful man. He was still playing with the Mozart Players when I was managing them at God knows what age.
There's a page I've turned down here about incredible violinists. I mean, a late night jam session with Zabritsky, Balanescu, Claude Williams, and why are there so many Jewish violinists, he said, but how do you flee with a piano?
Ivry Gitlis.
Yes. Oh, yes, of course, Ivry, yes.
That's his quote from him.
Oh, that must have been an incredible violin situation
It
there.
certainly was, yes.
Yes.
I can't remember whose idea that was, not mine, I fear. Probably Ivry's, I think. Because he found, what did you say his name was? Zabritsky?
Zabritsky, yes.
I think
Gypsy Trio.
Yeah, he found him in Paris, where Ivry lived at the time.
Wow.
And Balanescu was on the bill anyway, as was Claude Williams, who's a wonderful folk violinist from the American South. So they were, and they didn't rehearse it at all.
Oh,
they just came onto the platform and things happened.
That's incredible. See, I'm really drawn to the idea of people working in different genres, because the basics of music's going to stay the same. You know, the style and the harmony and intonation and the whatever.
Precisely.
And then it just extends. It's just more fun.
Yeah, much more. That was a memorable evening.
Sounds like it. I mainly know about this from Radio National. I think that's my sort of my culture dose at the moment. It's so hard now. We can't have these sort of festivals and things. You see the vibrancy of what's going on in here. Meryl Tankard's in the previous paragraph as well, and of course all these things involve crowds and large venues, and I mean, how are enormous concert halls and festival theatres and things going to survive long term as well?
Like, that's exactly what they're asking themselves.
Yeah. Festival. Voss, first touted as the great Australian Grand Opera. I was going to ask you about that. You had the premiere, and why would you say it would be the first Australian Grand Opera?
Because it's true.
Fair enough.
So I said, I must have had too much to drink, I think, which is quite likely. I said immediately, I will guarantee that the work will be ready in time.
With your hands.
So they said, okay, well, on your head be it, so to speak. And so I was at Richard from that moment on.
At least you knew him.
And it appeared on time.
Well done. Congratulations.
Oh, luck.
So it's David Malouf, the
wonderful libretto.
Writing the libretto on Patrick White. So that's a very distinguished team.
Yes, indeed.
So the lucky dip next. Oh, this is lovely. This is fantastic. And you'll know exactly who said this, but we might want to explain something on the context. There is no question in our day of the artist receiving a true mandate from society to create. The mandate of society is to entertain, and that mandate is clear and uncomplicated. But the mandate of the artist's own nature, of his special and innate gifts, is to reach down into the depths of the human psyche and bring forth the tremendous images of things to come. These images are not yet art. It takes a lifetime's work to mould them into art. For this, the artist can have no reward but in the joy of doing it. He creates because, without art in this deep and serious sense, the nation dies.
Yes, a quote from Michael Tippett, who came to the festival in
78. 78.
78, that's right, 78. And we did a local production of Midsummer Marriage, which in fact was the first production of the final work ever outside the UK. I mean, that was just by chance.
It's a fantastic work as well.
Yeah, indeed.
It's one of his best.
And he came and said he thought it was the best production of the work he'd ever seen. Well, by then he was blind, so I'm not quite sure what he meant by that.
It's a very impressive theatre, at the Festival Theatre. When
It
I see
is.
the ballet there, for example, it's enormous. I mean, the stage is huge, isn't it?
The stage is the biggest in Australia.
Yeah. And you opened it. You were there when it was open, obviously.
Sorry?
You were opening it originally.
Indeed, yes. Well, and building it, come to that. I mean, I was in charge when it was being built, is what I mean.
And you knew it was going to be the biggest stage in...
Well, that was not my doing. That was the architects, who the two main architects travelled around the world and visited everybody they could possibly think of. And they came back with firm impression in their mind that what designers want is as little clutter as possible and as much space
Right.
as possible so that they can do what they like.
Yes,
And
you get
that's
that impression.
exactly what they provided. In fact, Tazina Firth and, can't remember her husband's name, who were the designers for the production of Wozzeck that we did, first production of Wozzeck ever in Australia. That sort of thing astonishes me still, that could be so. They made the point that to have a completely bare stage and therefore to be able to do whatever they liked was not only a wonderful thing, but it was also very unusual.
So it's like a canvas, the stage.
Yeah, it's precisely.
Our government provides this stage for the humanities to...
It was
lovely.
It was actually the opening of the Playhouse.
Oh, okay.
And Don Dunstan, the Premier, read the poem from the stage, of course, and it was written by John Bray, poet and Chief Justice.
Wow. See, and good at rhetoric. Because I've actually quoted that in my Art Area strategic plan. I read that, it just leapt off the page to me. So, I'm really grateful for all your support and encouragement of Art Area, because the excitement of creating something new, it's really scary, but it's also, it's a huge artistic and creative challenge.
Of course it is.
Yes, to say, why don't we do this, and then go and do it.
But see, my two best festivals, without any doubt at all, were Brisbane in '93 and Adelaide in '86. They both made deficits into the hundreds of thousands, or well, over 100,000 anyway. Nobody cared.
And you could also say that that's a good use of public money as well. I mean, 100,000 in context of the 3 million or whatever.
Precisely.
It's not a massive amount of public money. So how do you measure, having said that those two festivals were your favourites, how do you have benchmarks? There must be a way in which an artistic director reviews and says, that was the best one because it reached this and this and this benchmark of my own, even if it's not financial.
Oh, only... I think it's fairly vague, only because I'm quite sure that those were the two best programmes.
So, but you do come from a commercial background as well, business background, with still
very much so, yes.
connections.
In a family connection. I come from a very large firm in the then thriving British steel industry. And my friendship with people like Rostropovich also came out of that clearly, because I was called upon sometimes when he and other Russians, the Borodin Quartet, who else, Gennady Rozhdestvinsky, who actually spoke perfect English, people like that were Mrs. Rostropovich, Galina Vishnevskaya, they were all just being let out of Russia for the first time. And none of them spoke English except Gennady.
If you're interacting with somebody in their own language, you get a better view of what they're like, don't you? Like maybe their humour or their real character.
Oh, very much so.
Yes. And so you know them quite well in that case.
Very well.
Yeah.
I knew them very well. I was in love with her for years. And mind you, they weren't difficult to get to know because he was such an outgoing personality.
Wow.
Extraordinarily so.
Is that a factor when you're programming things that people will play? Do you get people from their own countries to authentically play their own music?
But for example, the Shostakovich Quartet played all the Shostakovich quartets at the 86 festival, which was quite a thing in those days.
And that happened here.
Indeed.
As did the Midsummer Marriage and so many other things. I mean, Adelaide's history is enormous, and that's actually, what, 99% yours?
Oh, I don't know about that.
But all those Shostakovich quartets and...
Which was a very unusual thing to program at that time. All the Beethoven quartets, yes. All the Shostakovich quartets, no.
By a Russian quartet. My only concert in St. Petersburg was like that, 40 degrees, no air conditioning. Shostakovich with Gergiev and the LSO. And yeah. There's this incredible list of worldwide people who have been to Adelaide and have played here. And I mean, you know, on one page I read Philip Glass, Robin Archer, Melissa Fenley, Alexander Nevsky, not that that was a person, but that was there. Marianne Faithfull, Balanchine, James Crabb, Mike Westbrook, Tatiana. We ought to also say, I've just wanted to put this word to you, Big Band Rossini. What is Big Band Rossini?
Big Band Rossini is Mike Westbrook's arrangement of Rossini arias for a big band.
I think that should be played regularly. It sounds good.
But it's a fabulous piece of music. He's one of the great musicians, I think.
I mean, what would it be like if we can't international travel now? What effects is that going to have on the world? It's
enormous.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, okay, there's a lot of good things going on in South Australia, but so many of these advantages are because of people coming to visit.
Indeed.
And cultural exchange from different countries.
Indeed.
And you met Vaughan Williams as well.
I met Vaughan Williams for...
Can I touch you? You met Vaughan Williams
for probably 90 seconds.
Oh, well, it's better than nothing. I've never met him.
He went to not at the same time as me, he went to the same school, Charterhouse, and I was head of the choir. And we, every 4 years, I think, we performed something called the Charterhouse Masque, which was a sort of pageant of the history of the school, which goes back to the 15th, 16th century. And he came to one of the choir rehearsals. And since I was head of the choir, I was presented to him.
Well, I mean, that is absolutely, you've already mentioned Rostropovich and Shostakovich and classic Russian culture, but I mean, you know, Charterhouse and Vaughan Williams and England, that's quintessentially English. So
yeah,
are you English still? You're not Australian?
Oh, well, I'm both, I hope.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because I mean, you know, you've had such an important part of Australian culture and being, but I'm just wondering if your personal identity says me.